Yo, what's going on, guys? In this video, I'll be breaking down how to create this grunge transition, and we're going to be creating this transition based off of Lonewolf's most recent music video, where he used a lot of these like grunge transitions and effects throughout the music videos. We're also going to be creating a shape layer to animate onto our subject. So here in After Effects, I'll be using these two clips from Draft Day's music video in order to show the transition. And the first thing we're going to do is add a posterized time to the second clip, because I want that second clip to have sort of like that like lagginess or choppiness to it. So we're going to add a posterized time. Once you add that effect, go to frame rate, and instead of having it at 24 frames per second, I'm going to decrease that to like 14 frames. You can probably decrease that to like 12 or 14. And by doing that, it creates sort of like that choppiness, and that's just going to make the grunge transition look even better. Next thing we're going to do is actually create that grunge effect. So let's create a new adjustment layer and make sure that this adjustment layer is the same length as your clip. First effect I'll be adding is a grain. For the viewing mode, change that to final output. And then for the preset, you can choose any preset you want. I'll just be going with the Kodak Vision 500T. And then for the intensity, increase that to 2. For the size, I'll increase that just by a little, to like 1.1. And then for the color, I want to make sure that's monochromatic so that we don't have that like colored grain effect. Next thing we're going to do is add a tint, and for this effect I'll just leave it at black and white. And then for the final effect, we're going to add a curves. For the curves, I'll bring up the highlights, make sure that it's a lot brighter, and then we want to bring the shadows so that it's a lot darker and it gives it more of that like grunge look that we're going for. Next thing we're going to do is create another adjustment layer, make sure it's the same length as the clip, and for this one we're going to add a mosaic. All right, so right when you add this effect, we have this really pixelated look. So what we're going to do is increase the horizontal as well as the vertical blocks. I'm going to make sure that we can actually like see our footage. So I'll increase this to 450 and also increase this one to the same value. And what that does is just create more of that like low quality look. And the next thing we're going to do is add a film border around this footage, similar to Lonewolf's music video where he had film borders around his grunge effects. So let's create a new shape layer. For this shape layer, make sure that the fill is on and then the stroke is off. And for the fill color, I want to make sure that it's a black color. I'm just going to drag it over our clip, and then we're going to create a new shape layer. For this one, change the color to white. And then instead of having it a rectangle, I'm going to change it. If you hold the Alt button and then just go through the shapes, I'm going to make sure that it's the rounded rectangle tool. Create a shape layer around the edges like this so that you get the film borders, and I only want to see the film border. So go to the toggle switches and modes for shape layer 1, which is the film border. Grab the track mat and then attach it to that shape layer, and instead of having it like this, we want to click this one so that we have the luma matte, and then click the invert matte. So after doing that, we have just the film border, and then we're going to grab these two layers, pre-compose them. For this film border layer, I'm going to be adding a Gaussian blur. Increase the blurriness to around like 12. And by adding this effect, it makes it look like it actually belongs with our footage. And then for the next effect, we're going to add a roughen edges. Once you add this effect, as you guys can see, it gives it kind of like that texturized look. Decrease the border. I'll decrease that to 0. Also decrease the scale to 20. Grab this film border and bring it under the adjustment layers. Then I'm going to open up the scale, and I want the Y value of the scale to be a little bigger. So unlink this and then increase the Y value just by like 3%. And now we have a film border for the second clip. Next thing we're going to do is create that flash transition between these two clips. So I'm going to create a new adjustment layer. Make sure this adjustment layer is only 2 frames, and then add the invert effect. After doing that, we're going to create a new solid layer. Make sure the color of the solid layer is white. Cut the solid layer so that it's only 4 frames, then bring it between these two clips so that we have 2 frames on the left and then 2 frames on the right. For this one, I'm going to open up the opacity, lower this to 50%, keyframe that at the beginning, and then we're going to go towards the middle, increase the opacity to 70%, then keyframe the end at 50%. Easy ease all the keyframes. So this is what we have for that flash effect. And then the final thing we're going to do is create that shape layer so that it animates with our subject. Create a new shape layer, and make sure for this one you turn off the fill, turn on the stroke, and for the stroke color I'm going to have it black. Bring this layer under all the other layers except for the actual clip. And then of course we're gonna cut this layer. For the stroke, I want it to be pretty thin, so I'm gonna just decrease that to 2. You wanna make sure you start from the beginning of your clip. Turn these layers off for now. Drag the shape layer over your subject. Since we want the shape layer to actually follow our subject, we're gonna be keyframing the scale as well as the position. So at the beginning, I'll just keyframe the position, go forward a few frames, and then keyframe the position again so that it's like following your subject. I'm also going to keyframe the scale. Before we do that, I'm going to unlink it because I'm eventually going to keyframe just the X value of the scale. So just keyframe that, go forward another few frames. I'll go forward like 7 frames, increase just the X value of the scale so that it like fits our entire subject. And obviously this all like really depends on your footage and where your subject is for your clip. So I'm just gonna continue doing this until I reach the end of the layer. Once you reach the end of the layer, you wanna decrease the X value of the scale so that it goes from big to small. And I'll just decrease it like that, bring that towards the end, easy ease all of the keyframes. This is the final look for the grunge transition. For the shape layer, if you don't like the roundness of the edges, you can always just decrease the roundness to 0. Or if you like the roundness, you can just leave it as it is. But yeah, this is the final transition. And that's all I have for now. If you guys want to save time editing and also further support me, I'll have a link down in the description to my editing packs and presets. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.